am reading Nick Chronicles. We left off at page 32, so I'm reading that. If you are interested, however, tomorrow I am going to be reading The Lightning Thief, so the Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief. So if you're interested in listening to that, you know where to go. Yeah. So we'll start where we left off. He paused as they came even to the Café du Monde. They sat at the edge of the French market, and the smell of chicory coffee and baguettes hit him. It was the first time in his life the sweet smell didn't cramp his stomach with hunger pangs. Today, his stomach was completely full. He appreciated it and savored it, until he realized he was being left behind. Even though he was taller than his mom, he still had to hurry to catch up to her. For a little woman, she could seriously haul whenever she wanted to. Luckily, she was so intent on her destination that she didn't even notice he was trailing behind. She cut down Dumaine and Turkis as they went up the quarter of Tourette's and Ursuline. She finally slowed down, as if suddenly apprehensive. Not that he blamed her. Almost a city block in size, Sanctuary was not only huge but legendary as well. Everyone in New Orleans knew about the place that was open from 8 a.m. to 3 in the morning. It was said to have some of the best food in the world and some of the meanest patrons. The 3-story red brick building had a huge sign that hung over the saloon-style doors. It was black with a motorcycle pattern on a hill and silhouetted by a full moon. The word Sanctuary was white with a haze purple outline, and on the lower right-hand side of the sign, in a much smaller font, was the slogan, Home of the Howlers. But that wasn't what made Nick hesitate. Standing outside the door was a huge mountain of a man who leaned against the wall. Even taller than Kieran, he had arms like 2 tree trunks and long, curly blonde hair that was pulled back into a ponytail. And as he stared at him, Nick saw a flash in his mind of the bouncer turning into a big, angry bear. He was only one of the shapeshifters Alex Peltier had told him about last night. Nick had no idea how he knew that, but he did. His mom pulled him across the street to where the werebear was standing. As if he sensed Nick feeling his preternatural powers, the bear narrowed a pair of glacier blue eyes on them. You two lost? His mom swallowed audibly. Kieran Hunter told me to speak to Nicolette Peltier. I believe she owns this establishment. He met Nick's gaze with a curious frown before he pulled a walkie-talkie off his belt and pressed the button. Amy, is Memon in her office? Yeah, why? I have 2 humans out here who want to see her. Kieran's on them. His choice of words amused Nick. While his mother would dismiss it as ignorance, he knew better. The guy in front of him was warning the rest of his family that new humans were entering. Nice code. In your face and at the same time inconspicuous enough to fly below the radar of most people. Be nice to them, Remy. Don't bite their heads off. Manam will be right out, the woman on the radio said. Remy opened the swinging door for them. If you two want to go on and wait, his mother smiled. Thank you. She pushed at the door to look back at the bear. Is Alex around? Remy narrowed his gaze on him. How do you know Alex? How do you know? Sorry, guys. Just lost the page. Remy opened the swinging door for them. Oh, is Alex around? Remy narrowed his gaze on him. How do you know Alex? Could there be any more suspicion or challenge in that tone? We go to school together. Ah, and that was all he said. Okay, obviously the bear wasn't a morning person and had no desire to tell him where to find his classmate. Deciding not to irritate someone who wasn't human and who could possibly break his spine in half, Nick went inside and joined his mother, who was standing in front of the first round table that was set with 4 chairs since it was still an hour and a half before lunch. There weren't many occupants in the room. 2 men, no werepanther and werehawk, stood at the bar, restocking and cleaning. There was 1 person at a table with a laptop and a coffee cup, 2 women eating a late breakfast, and an older man reading the paper and making notes of some kind. His mom handed him a dollar. Go play a video game while I talk to the owner. Thinking it was odd, but too grateful for the rarity of having money to waste, Nick went off to the rear of the restaurant where pool tables were set out and arcade games were placed against the wall. As he neared them, he caught sight of a boy a few years older than him who was cleaning tables. It wasn't the matted blonde dreadlocks that made him pause, so much as it was the small monkey sitting on the boy's shoulder eating a banana. The monkey bared its teeth at Nick before it made a noise at him. The busboy reached up to soothe the monkey and settle it right down. Nick wanted to go and investigate the primate, but something about the busboy warned him to keep his distance. No, not boy, were-tigered. A very vicious and antisocial one. How can I tell that by looking at him? Yesterday he'd been normal. Today he was a freak fest. As images of shapeshifters around him flashed in his mind, he didn't know their names, but he knew what they were, even though they were masquerading as humans. What is going on? His head was spinning from the overload of information, but with all of that overwhelming sense, was an overwhelming sense of safety. He didn't feel threatened by the animals around him. It was as if they were guardians of some sort, protectors, not predators. Something that sounded as far-fetched as the restaurant and bar owned by a family of shapeshifters. Ambrose? He silently summoned his uncle, needing someone who could help him understand what's going on here. I'm seeing scary things. People who aren't people. Remember what I told you, kid. You have the power of percepti, the ability to see what's hidden. No one will ever be able to lie to me again. No one will be able to lie to me again? No, that's a different power. Persificity allows you to see most paranormal beings who are trying to blend into the human world. What do you mean, most? There are some demons who are powerful enough to hide, as well as upper-level gods and those who are possessed. In time, you'll be able to see them too, but that will take a lot of training and discipline. For now, it was like living in some bad psychiatric hallucination. Just relax, Nick. Go play a game. He felt Ambrose leaving him alone again, with nothing better to do, he went over to the Gollum mansion. Wow, he hadn't seen one of these in a long time. Some old-timer must have caught a liking to it. Pulling out his dollar, he converted it into tokens, then pulled one and listened to the decisive music. He just started playing when a shadow fell over him. He looked up and froze instantly. Holy mother! This dude had to be over 7 feet tall, an older version of the guy at the door. This one had the most merciless expression Nick had ever seen. I'm going to die. Who said you could play my machine? Nick knew it was the man saying it, but he saw a grisly predator in his mind, a huge bear with blood in its eyes. The man laughed and playfully shoved his arm. Relax, kid. Don't wet my floor. I was just teasing you. Easier said than done, since his heart was racing, like Richard Patty at Daytown. He shook his head. I'm Papa Bear Peltier. You have a name? Nick. Nice to meet you, Nick. He pulled a token out of his pocket and held it out to him. Sorry I ruined your game, but I love the look of shock on people's faces the first time they meet me. It's a thing of beauty. Nick took the token, but still wasn't sure what to think. He's a good guy, kid. Thank him for the token. Thanks. Papa Bear patted him on the shoulder and then walked toward the stage so that he and another guy who was an exact copy of Remy could run electric cords on the ground. Close your mouth, Sug. Papa only bites those who bare their teeth first. He turned at the soft, lighty accent to find what had to be one of the most gorgeous women he'd ever seen. Tall, blonde, and built with the kind of curves men dreamed about. She wore a black sanctuary t-shirt that was tight enough to make him really uncomfortable. I'm Amy Peltier. You must be Nick. Man, she had better powers than he did. How do you know my name? She leaned in to speak into his ear as if she were imparting a great secret to him. Your mother told me in the back room, she whispered. Oh, yeah, duh. He felt especially stupid with that. Come on and let me introduce you to the crew that is currently awake and functioning. Unsure about that, Nick hesitated. Why? Was she going to feed him to the bears or something? Since your mom will be working here and your school is just down the street, you'll probably be hanging out a lot in the near future. Oh. Finally relaxing, he allowed her to lead him to the busboy with the monkey. Ren, say hi to Nick. The busboy didn't respond other than to glare out from under the mop of gnarled hair. Amy took it in stride. Ren doesn't like to speak, but he's a nice guy and lives next door in our house. You'll see him a lot since he has no personal life or outside interests. He basically works all the time. She scratched the monkey's on its head. And this furry little fella is Marvin. Marvin, say hi to Nick. The monkey jumped from Ren's shoulder to Nick's, startling him. Nick grabbed him and held him close while Marvin mushed his hair and stuck one leathery finger into his ear. Ew. He likes to mess with people's hair. Amy held her hand out and Marvin allowed her to pull him into her arms and hug him. Marvin's a little beggar. Keep some snacks handy and he'll be your new best friend. She nuzzled his nose before returning him to Ren. Ren didn't say a word as Marvin perched on his shoulder. He merely went back to working, wiping down tables. Amy led Nick away. You met Remy when you arrived. My best advice to you is to learn which of the quads he is. Quads? She gestured to the stage where Papa and the other Remy look-alike were working. 4 brothers who are identical quads. Quinn! She called. The younger werebear looked up. She smiled and waved him back to work. That's obviously Quinn. I thought so. But sometimes rare though it is, I can't tell him from Sharif. They have the same exact haircut, which they occasionally do to mess with us. It's normally a little shorter than Remy's and Deb's. Deb you can spot pretty easily because he's always laughing and cracking sarcastic jokes. Your mom said that's right up your alley. He also has a double bow and arrow tattoo on his arm, and he's most often the one at the door. He took today off to run over to Kyrian to pick up a motorcycle he had on order. She drew up short and gave him a sinister look. If you approach one of them and he's growling or doesn't speak, assume it's Remy. He has perpetual PMS and will tear your arm right out of your socket. You don't really have to do anything other than breathe to piss him off. Word of the wise. He made a mental note of that as she took him to the bar. This blonde is Jason. Yeah, Jason. Say hi to Nick. The werehawk inclined his head to him. The other charming bartender this morning is Justin. Black hair, tall, and with an aura of, I'll kick your butt so hard you'll be burping my shoe leather. Another one Nick intended to avoid. An older version of Amy came out of the door next to the bar. She paused as she caught sight of him. He felt like he was under a microscope as she eyed him from head to toe. Finally, she held her hand out. Good day, Mr. Gautier. Mr. Gaucher, I'm Nicolette, but please, call me Mama Lou. Mama Lo. Her growl melted into a kind expression. Well, welcome to our family. I hear you work for Kyrian. I do, until he fires me. She laughed. No need to give him a reason to. Besides, he doesn't fire his people. He kills them. Mama! Amy said with a laugh. Poor boy doesn't know you're kidding. Nick, what are you doing here? Nick, what are you doing here? He turned at the call from Alex's sister, Kara, who also went to school with them. Even in height to him, she had the same blonde hair as Amy and Mama Lou. Amy explained his presence before he had a chance. His mother will be working with us, Kiki. Why don't you take him to the kitchen? I'm pretty sure Motor's cookies are done. Cookies? Dang, if they kept this up, he was gonna be huge. But it would be worth it. Nick took a step towards the kitchen and paused as a cold chill went down his spine. Something was here, and it was evil. He searched the room until his gaze found the source of his discomfort. The man stepped through the door behind the woman carrying a silver tray, dressed in a black t-shirt and gray hoodie. At first glance, he appeared like any guy around the age of 20, until Nick locked gazes with him and felt electricity jolt through him. There was no denying the intensity of this creature's presence. He was death, and he ridded on a pale horse. Chapter 3, goddamn. Okay, Death wasn't exactly on a pale horse, he was carrying it. Nick wanted to run for the door, but he couldn't get his feet to obey. It was like every jolt in his body was locked from some invisible force. Marty, Kara said excitedly. Your ears must have been burning. I was just getting ready to come and find you. His gaze never left Nick's. Really? Really? No wonder I knew to come out then. Must have heard all y'all screaming for cookies of death. Nick watched as the pale horse with no bigger than his hand. Nick watched as the pale horse, which was no bigger than his hand, reared up on the stack of cookies. Its color was like nothing he'd ever seen before. A strange mixture of blue and white. The color seemed to be living entirely all its own. The miniature horse snorted fire from its nostrils before it ran down Morty's arm and vanished inside of his pocket. What the hell? More than that, the image of Morty dressed in black armor, brandishing a sword. His black hair whipped around his face and shoulders while his eyes glowed a fierce, vibrant red, and his skin glinted like it was bronze and not flesh. Nick glanced around to see if any of the wares had noticed. If they did, they gave no indication. Would you like a cookie, kid? It took him a second to realize Death was speaking to him. What do you want? A cookie. He could have done without the tone. The tone said Death. He could have done without the tone that said Death thought he was a moron. When Death offers you a cookie or anything else, refuse. Yeah, that definitely seemed like the wisest course of action. Nick shook his head. I just say it a lot, and I'm still burping syrup. Thanks, but no thanks. The corner of Death's mouth quirked up with wry amusement. Carr frowned at him. You should try them, Nick. They're delicious. No one makes cookies that taste like this. Probably because arsenic was the key ingredient. He patted his stomach. Have to watch my girl's figure, because if I don't, no one else will. Death laughed as he handed the tray to Kara. Come on, Nick, let me show you around. I think I'm good. Completely oblivious to the fact that Nick was highly disturbed by their stringent cook, Amy grabbed a cookie off the plate. That's a good idea. You two have fun. I need to get back to payroll anyway. Mama, Nick silently whimpered. Morty grabbed his arm and all but hauled him through the swinging doors that led to the kitchen, where two giant brutes were cleaning. One was humongously tall and bald, with dark eyes that missed nothing. He had a tattoo at the base of his neck that looked like some kind of angry bird. The other was not much taller than Nick. His brown hair was cut short. Death clapped the tall one on the shoulder. Nick, meet my two companions, Pain and Suffering. Pain was the big one, and Suffering the smaller of the two. You'll have to ignore Suffering. He's mute. Mute? You should always suffer in silence. Nick would laugh, but he was afraid Pain might hit him for it. And since he was Pain, best to leave him be. Nice meeting you two. He looked around nervously. Oh, wait, I hear my mom calling. I better go see what she needs. He turned to leave, only to find that his legs were locked again. Death sauntered over to stand in front of him. Don't play coy with me, Cajun. We don't like that. Yeah, and he didn't like being stuck in the kitchen with ghouls either. Sometimes you don't get what you wanted. What do you want from me? Normally, it'd be your life and soul. He sighed heavily. Unfortunately, I can't take either right now. Sucks to be me today. He slapped Nick so hard on the shoulder that it made him stagger. I was sent here to teach you. Teach me what? Dying painfully in the back of an alley somewhere. How to understand augury. Nick scowled. What? Who? Augury. Death repeated. The art of divination. Okay, that made absolutely no sense to him. Yeah, but you're Death. Death gave him a droll stare. I know, kid, believe me. It's not something you forget, but there are many agents of death, messengers, as it were. I'm only one. In my opinion, I'm the best one, however, I'm the best one. However, there are plenty more out there able to do the job. Mostly granted, but enough that Death can sometimes take a holiday. He winked at him, and as he mentioned the title of a movie Nick's mom loved to watch. Yeah, Death was a few quarts shy of a gallon. I take it the death business doesn't pay too well, so you moonlight as a cook here in this place? You would think that, right? Death stepped out of his body, literally. Where there had only been one person, there was suddenly two. Only one of them now had short black hair, a white apron, tattoos running down both arms. That person ignored them while he went to the oven. Where are my cookies? He looked around and then scowled as he caught sight of Nick. Who are you? And what are you doing back here? Only staff is allowed in the kitchen. Remy! Nick opened and closed his mouth like a fish. He pointed to Death. He can't see me, kid. He just thinks you're nuts for pointing at nothing. Great. That's all he needed. One more person who thought he was on drugs. Morty? The cook drew up short as he headed for the door. Yeah? I'm Nick. Amy told me to come back here and introduce myself to you. My mom will be working here. Morty held his hand up in warning. Stay right there. Don't you move. He went to the door and pushed it open, only enough for his head to vanish while he spoke to the others. Nick could hear his muffled voice, but couldn't understand the words. Death laughed easily. I love making humans think they're losing their minds. Nothing else is quite so satisfying, other than listening to them try and bargain with me for their lives. You know, I was once offered my own private island with a harem of virgins and 3 camels. Tempting, but a ghoul has to do what a ghoul has to do. The look on his face said that he was savoring the memory. Then it hit Nick on his injured shoulder. Watch this. Morty returned with a stern frown on his face. How did I get my cookies out there without knowing? Death snickered. Look at his face. I love it. Nick cleared his throat. Meth is death, dude. Lay off the crack. What? Morty looked at him as if he'd forgotten he was there. Anyway, Amy said you're legit. I still don't remember meeting you. I just don't remember. It's all right. We all have. He slid his gaze to Death, who was laughing and had to wonder if he wasn't imagining things too. Art issues. Tell you what. I think I've met enough new people for the day. I'm gonna go chill for a while. and have my head examined because obviously I'm having a hallucination problem brought on by finding out my boss is a freak of nature. Now I'm seeing freaks everywhere. Good idea. Morty headed to the stove. Death slung his arm around Nick's shoulder. Call me Grim or Master. I prefer Master, but Grim works since it reminds you of who I am and what will happen to you if you get under my skin. Capsule? Capiche? Got it. Good. By the way, did you know the word capiche is actually the Latin word for sis, as in capidem, or in the case of your nocturnal boss, capernaculum, sees the night. Nick wasn't sure what to make of that. Close your mouth, kid. The cook already thinks you're crazy. Remember, right now, you only have the privilege of my company. Okay? The correct answer should always be capiscio. I understand. So when I say capiche, you say, Nick hesitated before answering, capiscio. Grim patted him on the cheek. Beautiful! You can be taught. It makes my job so much easier when you're actually intelligent. You'd be amazed, the idiots I've come across. As George Clarence so elegantly put it, think of how stupid the average person is, and realize half of them are stupider than that. He had a point. I try to keep my stupid to a bare minimum since my mom's always telling me it can be fatal in large doses. Oh, she's right, believe me. I know. For that matter, it can be fatal in even small measurements. Remind me sometime to tell you about the woman I claimed who was vacuuming her cat. I'm sorry. Who are you talking to? Nick felt his face go hot as Morty's question. Still in the kitchen, aren't I? Guess I need to keep walking. Oh, look, yonder is the door, which I'm going to make use of right now. He quickly made his exit. The small group he'd left earlier had disappeared. No one was there except two bartenders who had gone back to restocking behind the bar. Nick paused beside them. Where's my mom? Before they could answer, she came out of the restroom area, dressed in a black sanctuary t-shirt that matched Amy's. Thankfully, hers was on the large side and kept her completely covered. Her face lit up the moment she saw him, and she practically danced her way over to him. Hey, boo! He started to ask her if he was forgiven for getting her fired, but decided that might not be his best interest. You look happy. Oh, I am, baby. Oh, baby, I am. They are so nice here, all of them. She slid her gaze to the door. Well, Remy's a little distant, but I'll take that any day over some of the people I worked with at the club. They're even going to give me a day schedule so that I can be home with you at night. And best of all, they feed me free while I work. And you too. It's not just scraps. We could eat steak if we wanted to. I'll settle for cookies. Yeah, I know you would. She squeezed his cheek. I'm technically on the clock already. I should have left you at Mr. Hunter's. I tried to tell you that. Don't sass me. She let out a sigh. I know you'll be bored here. I mean, they have things to do. She glanced over at the gaming area. But it's probably best not to press our luck the first day. I can go hang out at Bubba's. It's just on the street. All the joy evaporated off her face. That is one name I never want to hear again. I swear, that man and his antics, he's ridiculous. He'd also saved both of their lives last night, but for Bubba and his epic fighting and driving skills, they'd be dead today. That thought made him glance at his mother's shoulder to where Grim watched him with a bemused expression. He tapped his watch. Bubba's all right, Ma. He was just trying to help. Yeah, well, for his own personal safety, you better keep him away from me, or you'll have two parents in prison for murder. As soon as those words were out of her mouth, she slapped a hand over her lips and looked around frightfully. Let's not talk about that here, okay? She whispered. I don't talk about that man's unfortunate and eternal existence to anyone ever. No offense, but he hated the sperm donor who spawned him. Speaking of people he didn't want to talk about, his father was a cold-blooded killer who knocked them both around the few weeks he'd been out of jail. If Nick never saw him again, it'd be too soon. Go stay with Bubba. I'll check in with you later. All right, do you have my new cell number? That sounded indefinitely better in his head than it did coming out of his mouth, as if invoking an image of him in a prison orange sitting on a bench doing time in Algonia like his dad did. Not with me. She pulled a pad and pen from her pocket and handed it to him. He jotted his number down and gave it to her. If you need me, shout. She kissed him on the cheek. Be safe. Be good. Always. Nick turned around and headed for the door. Luckily, Grim didn't speak to him again until they were on the street and far away from Remy. Oh, Nicky, that's so sweet. Your mama loves you. Nick rose instantly. Don't mock my mother. You don't speak of her in anything but the most reverent of tones. I don't care if you are deaf. I will open a can of Cajun whoop ass all over you, boy. Grim arched a brow at his competent, took a step back, as if giving him space to beat Nick into a bleeding pulp. Normally, I'd be handing you the can opener and daring you to go for it. Be glad I owe a debt that precedes me from killing you right now. But don't push it while you have predetermined death. Your own free will decisions can overcarry that. Put that in the bank and think about it before you try and make a withdrawal. Nick frowned at him. What do you mean I have a predetermined death? Did I stutter? No. Do I look like Wellsber? Nick frowned. No. Then you should understand what I said. Since I didn't speak in code, every mortal creature is born with an expiration date, sometimes immortals too, set by the big clockmaker. But exclusive stupidity and moradic tendencies can shorten it. Pissing me off is one real good way to cut yours down to about 3 seconds from now. The ice in his voice as he spoke went a long way in making Nick back down. Not that he made a habit of that. Far from it. His mom often called him Snapper after the snapping turtle, because anytime you sink your teeth into something, you won't let go until lightning strikes you. It was sadly true. However, his survival instincts won out. So what are we doing anyways? Grim gave him a droll stare. We're going to Bubba's. Isn't that what you told your mom? Yeah, but I thought, for the first lesson, I can train you anywhere. I just remember, I won't be seen, you will. Nick considered that. Bubba's it is. He was the one person who wouldn't bat an eyelash that Nick was talking to an imaginary friend. Heck, he'd probably bring his own out to play too. So, who sent you to train me anyway? Grim grinned. I'm not at liberty to say. Then how do I know I can trust you? You're still breathing, right? If an MOD comes to you and you see them and you live through it, obviously, we're here for your good and not your demise. MOD, messenger of death. The moment Graham spoke those words, Nick saw an image of him standing, his wings extended, his eyes flashing red, and his face with a growing purple skeleton. You like to freak people out, don't you? Death grinned. Absolutely. I love the sounds of fear they make. Music to my ears. And on that note, Nick decided it would be best to continue on. No, he wasn't sure he could trust Grim, but it wasn't worth angering him, so he turned down Royal and made his way to the Triple B, the only computer and gun store in the world, at least that Nick knew about. And that said a lot about Bubba, whose logo was him standing over a shot-smoking computer with a gun slung over his shoulder. 1-888, call Bubba. If I can't take care of your computer problems one way, I'll take care of them another. Yeah, Nick knew all kinds of people. Triple B? Grim asked as they approached the sign that hung above the door. What does that stand for? Nick scratched the back of his neck. There's some debate on that. Sometimes it's for Big Bub Brudette. Others believe it stands for Big Balls and Brains. What does Bubba say? He changes it every time someone asks. Grim smiled. I like him already. Nick slowed as he saw the damage from the night before. The main window had duct tape over the Brokeens planes in front of the door, which had been blasted off its hinges. It had been chained in place, and there was soot from the flamethrower all over it. Yeah, last night had been fun. It was a wonder they weren't all in jail. Grim crossed his arms over his chest and surveyed the mess. Reminds me of the apocalypse. Shame I missed whatever went down here. It was a zombie invasion, and we barely escaped with our lives. Grim scoffed. What are you? Arthritic? Zombies don't move fast enough to be a threat to anyone. They do, however, make great targets when you're bored. These weren't undead zombies, at least not all of them. There was a group of demons after me. They found a video game that a friend of mine had made that could program humans' brains and turn a person into a mindless killing machine. They were using my football team to come after us, and trust me, them boys can move and move fast. We didn't want to kill them because it wasn't their fault. Grim screwed his face up as if Nick's word caused him pain. Let me give you free advice, kid. Whenever something is coming for you, snap its neck or double tap. Never, ever hesitate. It's infinitely better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. He had a point, but Nick wasn't his father, and he didn't want to take anyone's life, especially not one of his classmates. He was bullied enough without adding that to his resume. Grim pulled against the padlock chain that was holding the unhinged doors across the storefront. Anyway, Nick pulled out his phone and dialed Bubba's number. Ew, because of Bubba's thick southern drawl, most people thought he was stupid when they first met him. But Bubba was a Summercomland graduate from MIT and was without a doubt the smartest man Nick had ever met. A lot crazy, but highly intelligent. Hey Bubba, it's Nick. My mom started a new job at Sanctuary and wanted me to lie down until she got off work. Since you're the reason she got me fired, I was wondering if I could work at the shop today. Oh, hell yeah. Get your Cajun hide around the back door pronto. I'm right outside. Nick stood around to the rear door. Oh, shit. It's already been 37 minutes, guys. Hold on. Let's see how many pages we got left. You know the drill. Oh, we can finish the chapter. Oh, hell yeah. Get your Cajun hide around the back door pronto. I'm right outside. Nick scooted around to the rear door that was usually reserved for deliveries. Bubba already had it opened. I eyed him. How you doing? I'm alive, so no complaints. Wish Mark thought that way. Boy ain't done nothing but cry like a girl all morning long. I'm not crying. I'm in pain, you heartless crow bag. At 6'4" and with a full black beard and short black hair, Bubba was the epitome of what most people would call a redneck. But the one thing Nick had learned in his short life was that people saw him fit with whatever stereotype others wanted to give him. Case in point, while Bubba loved his truck, his mom, and his guns and flannel shirts, he was also a huge horror movie fan and a sucker for foreign girl movies. In fact, Bubba's favorite show was Oprah, and he watched it faithfully every single day. Whoa, or more to the point of death, to anyone who came in between Bubba and his TV at 4. His music of choice was punk or alternative, and he was never caught with a pair of Doc Marten boots. Just like Bubba, Mark Fingerman wasn't what he seemed either. Yes, he wore a lot of camouflage, but that was to keep the zombies from seeing him. Don't ask. Mark believed in all paranormal creatures, even the Tooth Fairy. Again, don't ask. Mark could try the patience of Gandhi. Only a handful of years older than Nick, Mark was Bubba's sidekick. With a shaggy brown hair and bright eyes, Mark stood in the store with the mop and bucket he was currently holding. Currently, he was choking said mop and kicking the bucket so much it sloshed water onto the floor. Nick scowled at them. What's going on? Mark came forward and handed him the mop he was so obviously hated. Clean up, my friend. Welcome to the party. I'm so glad you can make it. Groaning, Nick took the mop. He'd argue, but Bubba might shoot him, as he'd done the last 4 computers that had irritated him. The guts of the most recent one were still separated out over Bubba's work table in the back. Look, but Mark held up his hands for Nick to inspect. They're all pruny and wet. I'll never have my soft, sweet hands again. Nick snorted. You're not right, are you? Oh, please, if I were right in the head, you think I'd be working for Bubba? Especially given what the cheap bastard pays. How hard did you hit your noggin last night? Nick dodged Mark's hand as he tried to touch his hair. Dude, don't do that. Nick glanced over to Grim, who rolled his eyes. I know this clown, Grim said evilly, in an evil tone. He keeps teasing me with these near-death experiences. One day, I'm going to take his butt down even when I'm not supposed to. You can't keep knocking on my door then slamming it in my face. It's just not right. Nick, Bubba called, why don't you clean the front of the store while Mark and I pick up back here? All right. As he left the back room, he headed to the store area. He realized how much the two of them had already done. All the debris was picked up, and most of the shattered glass they must have been cleaning for hours. For a full minute, Nick saw the events of last night play through his head. It had been horrible, but the one good thing that had been the fact that they'd accidentally found a way to fix the human zombies and return them to normal. The other kind, those had just been gross and nasty to take out. Grim wandered around, looking at shelves of computers and laptops, as well as accessories that were set in the middle of the floor. The walls were lined floor to ceiling with one of the largest gun selections in the southeast. Glass case separated the guns from anyone who might wander in and pick one up. Bubba's first rule: no one handles a gun in my store without direct supervision. Nick's gaze involuntarily went to the picture of Bubba's mama that hung on the wall, a portrait that had hung a gunshot in it right between her eyes. His stomach slid to his feet. Yeah, that had been a close call. So, what are you going to teach me? He asked, Graham, in an effort to avoid thinking about he'd shot Bubba's mama in the head. He was lucky he was still breathing after that. How to open your mind and pay attention. The universe is always speaking to us. Sometimes the signs are in our faces, and other times they are very, very subtle. Subtle how? Grim pointed to the picture of Bubba's mama. Let's use that for example. When you look at that, you see nothing but a hole in a painting. When I look at it, I can tell exactly how and when you're going to die. And I don't mean Bubba coming after you in anger over defacing his mother's image. It shows in control of your future and how it ends. That was the end of chapter 3. I was going to read chapter 4 today, but I have something to do, and it's already been 43 minutes. So, we ain't doing that today. I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry. But come back. Here, let me say the page number so we know which page we're on. We're on chapter 4, page 71. Remember that, 71. Oh, I can just write it down, duh. So we, for the next book update, come back on the 18th, or Friday, and that's the next book update for, the book. And then if you are interested in reading or listening to The Lightning Thief, come back tomorrow, and I will be reading that. Yes, I will. On the 17th. Tomorrow, Thursday, the 17th, September. Yeah, no fucking shit. Anyway, bye.